If I'd known that revving my ATV on a quiet Sunday morning in 2024 would ignite a neighborhood feud in Willow Creek, complete with HOA fines, a furious woman in a sun hat, and a petition to protect our sacred paths, I might have cranked the throttle even harder. The chaos kicked off when I was elbow-deep in tuning the carburetor on my Yamaha, parked on my own gravel driveway in this sleepy suburb of Boise, Idaho. Out of nowhere, a lime green golf cart screeched to a stop, and out stormed a woman I'd later know as Helen Marwood, vice president of the Willow Creek HOA and self-appointed guardian of the community's Serenity Trails. She waved her phone like it was a court summons, pointing at my ATV as if it had just trampled her rose garden. "You're breaking the rules," she barked, her voice trembling with either rage or too much espresso. I slid my sunglasses down, still gripping a wrench in one hand and a can of Mountain Dew in the other, and said, "Rules? For what?" Existing too loudly. That was all it took to send her into a full-blown tirade. Helen claimed a dusty clause in the HOA bylaws banned recreational vehicles on properties next to the community's trails. The trail in question? A narrow, overgrown strip that cut through the corner of my 5-acre Loda lot I'd bought specifically because it straddled the line between suburban control and rural freedom. For years, the HOA ignored this path until some busybody decided to spruce it up with gravel, solar lanterns, and cutesy stones painted with sayings like, "Find your zen." Now, it was their holy grail. I told Helen straight. My ATV had never even grazed their precious trail, and since I paid the taxes on this land, I didn't see her name on the deed. Her response? She snapped a photo of my license plate and declared I'd be slapped with a $1,500 fine for disrupting a community asset. 2 days later, a certified letter arrived from the HOA, dripping with self-righteous legalese. It cited trail encroachment with timestamped photos and threatened more penalties if I didn't stop all motorized disturbances within earshot of their path. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my coffee. They were serious trying to police noise on my own land because it might ruffle some joggers' mindfulness. I held off on replying, curious to see how far they'd push. The answer came in a neighborhood-wide email thread, where Helen, either by mistake or sheer audacity, included me in a BCC to her Trail Harmony Committee. She called my property a public nuisance, accused me of running an illegal garage, and hinted at legal escalation if fines didn't tame me. That's when the laughter stopped. This wasn't just petty, it was a calculated power grab. I fired back a curt reply. Noted. I'll handle this my way. Living on the edge of Willow Creek meant zoning lines were my best friend. My land wasn't just a house. It was a patchwork of mixed-use acres I'd bought through my LLC, a trick I learned from years dealing with land use lawyers. Helen had no idea who she was tangling with. I wasn't ready to burn bridges yet, but I wasn't about to roll over either. So, the next weekend, I threw a party 6 buddies, 5 ATVs, a smoker grilling ribs, and a booming speaker blasting Lynyrd Skynyrd. We stayed firmly on my land, but the engine roars carried across the valley, straight into their yoga brunches. It wasn't spy-tight, it was physics. Sure enough, Helen showed up, this time with a twitchy guy in khakis named Roger Tate, HOA president. He tried to hand me another fine on the spot. I asked him to show me the county code backing their authority. Roger fumbled with a dog-eared HOA handbook that looked like it predated the internet. When I pressed him on jurisdiction, he froze, and Helen started ranting about community spirit and vibe destruction. I leaned in and said, "You want peace? Move to a convent. This is Idaho." They stormed off, but the fight was far from over. 3 days later, 2 county inspectors knocked on my door, sent by an HOA complaint claiming I was running an unpermitted business. They were polite, almost apologetic, and after a quick look around, they left, one muttering, "This is personal. Your place is cleaner than most." That's when I started digging. Every HOA has dirt shady finances, questionable easements, misused funds. A few hours of sifting through county records revealed the trail wasn't even theirs. They'd been maintaining it with an expired municipal grant, meaning they were technically trespassing on private land, including mine. Jackpot. I sent the HOA a letter citing the expired grant, their lack of title, and a cease and desist for any trail work near my property, with the county clerk CC'd. Their response? An emergency meeting to pass a new trail protection ordinance, banning vehicles within 500 feet of the path, HOA land or not. It passed by one vote Helen's, thanks to two proxy votes she held. A board member named Carl, fed up with the circus, leaked the minutes to me with a note. "This is nuts. They're drunk on power. Good luck." Luck wasn't what I needed. I had something better, a 30-foot wide strip of land I'd bought at a tax auction years ago for $600. It was a forgotten sliver between the trailhead and the public parking lot, useless except for one thing. It was the only access point to their trail. They hadn't done their homework, but I had. I confirmed my ownership with the county GIS office, double-checked the survey stakes, and realized every dog walker and jogger had to cross my land to reach their sanctuary. Game on. I didn't act immediately. I waited for them to make one more move. They did, installing a gaudy arch at the trailhead with a sign reading Helen Marwood Path, a haven for all. I took a photo for posterity and planted my own sign, a red and white metal plaque declaring private property, access revoked. No trespassing. For flair, I added a laminated note about ecological restoration. Technically, true bindweed is native. I set up trail cams, motion-activated sprinklers, and a speaker that blared coyote howls when triggered. The reactions were priceless. One guy dove into a ditch when the sprinklers hit, and a jogger tried to debate the speaker. Helen marched up my driveway, yoga mat in hand, ready to lecture. "This is a public trail," she snapped. I sipped my coffee and said, "You named a trail after yourself on land you don't own. That's not bold, it's illegal." She waved HOA papers, claiming easement rights. I told her the easement expired in 2018, unrenewed. She sputtered, then threatened lawyers. I shrugged. "Bring it." A deputy named Mike visited later, sent by Helen's harassment claims. He checked my deed, grinned, and said, "You're solid." She's just loud. The HOA forum exploded, with Helen calling me a land-hoarding tyrant. Carl shut it down, urging residents to avoid escalating disputes. But Helen wasn't done. She hired her brother-in-law's law firm, who sent a letter full of vague threats about public interest and environmental recklessness. I countered with my lawyer, Sarah, a land-use shark who'd once made an HOA president cry in court. Her response was a masterclass in legal shade, citing precedents and warning of harassment countersuits. Helen's next move was a desperate county court filing for a public access order, claiming the trail closure caused emotional distress. She even brought a retiree to testify about losing her daily strolls, only for the woman's son to reveal she hadn't walked in years and was bribed with grocery money. The judge dismissed it, saying, "This is a personal vendetta, not a public crisis." The neighborhood split. Some rallied behind Helen's trail freedom crusade, others sent me thank you notes. Then someone, likely her ally, tried cutting my fence at night. My cams caught it, and I mailed the HOA a blurry still with, "Next time, bring a lawyer." Carl called, begging for peace. I wasn't interested in peace, I wanted permanence. I contacted the county's environmental office, leveraging a new conservation program to reclassify the trail as a protected habitat. The HOA's own bird feeders and flower beds made it qualify. Within weeks, the county banned all vehicles, including HOA maintenance carts, within 150 feet of the trail. The path began to overgrow, the arch tilted, and Helen's dream crumbled. I doubled down, planting a dense hedge of hawthorn and wild plum to seal the trailhead. I posted photos online, captioned, "Restoring nature, one thorn at a time." The comments roasted Helen for me. At the next HOA meeting, I showed up with a folder of deeds, easements, and conservation rulings. I laid out the trail's legal death, expired easements, habitat protections, and trespassing risks. The room went silent. Helen stormed out as the board voted to abandon the trail. But she tried one last stunt, a freedom walk on a neighbor's land. That neighbor, a grizzled vet named Frank, unleashed his sprinklers and chickens on her rally. The viral photo of Helen, drenched and dodging poultry, was pure poetry. I sealed the deal by placing my land under a 99-year conservation easement, making any trail revival illegal. At a final HOA meeting, I played drone footage of the land's rebirth birds, foxes, and a hawk on Helen's crumbling arch. I said, "This is heritage, wild, free, and mine. The board killed the revival plan on the spot. Months later, the trail was gone, reclaimed by vines and thorns. My ATV roared free, and the university now studies the land for ecological research. Helen? She moved to a gated community in Twin Falls, reportedly fighting over fence heights. I turned a fine into a forest, and every engine rev feels like victory.